Welcome back into Bills Chat Live. I am Josh McCarty. With me tonight, as always, is Luka. Luka, it is a football Friday, a real football Friday, not a, hey, it's preseason. The Bills play a practice game tomorrow. We have one NFL game already in the books. We're going to talk about that because that was a great result for our Buffalo Bills. And the Bills play a real football game this coming Monday against the New York Jets. We're going to dive into that matchup, talk about things we like about that matchup, talk about concerns we have with that matchup, ultimately give our score prediction. We have a lot to get into tonight, Luka, and I know you're fired up for it.
Absolutely fired up. It was awesome to have real, meaningful regular season kickoff football last night when it came to the Chiefs and Lions. Obviously, we'll dabble into that real quick before we go into our lead, but it feels right. It feels normal. I mean, I'm watching like my sports betting programs about week one slates and what they like and dislike. It's all previews all week long about different teams, different NFL slates, the 1:00 hour. We have red zone on the horizon here, Josh. We're going to have commercial free football on Sunday, this coming Sunday. It's a beautiful time of year, and it's something we just have to appreciate because, of course, when you get into the dog days, that is the springtime and everything. These are the things we crave at that point in time. So we are here, and I am ready to go.
Well, before we get into Bills Jets, and we are going to dive deep into Bills Jets, don't you worry. We have to talk briefly about the game that happened last night. Let's just spend a couple minutes on it because we have a packed house of Bills fans that are excited about this Bills Jets game. But the Chiefs lost last night, everybody. They were at Arrowhead. It was banner night. It was supposed to be a celebration, but Travis Kelce couldn't go. Chris Jones is still dealing with a contract situation. And Luka, just what were your overarching thoughts about that game as it ended? Do you have any long-term concerns about the Chiefs? Was it more of a one-off? Just what are your thoughts?
So when it comes to the Chiefs, I feel like it's more of a one-off situation. What I will say though is there were noticeable things to me that kind of were highlights or interesting things that aren't a one-off. Like I do question their tackles right now. I don't know what the heck's going on. And I'm talking outside of the obvious when it comes to like Jawan Taylor and that whole situation. Just even without Hutchinson, when you had other individuals lined up across them, it seemed like they weren't really comfortable. It didn't seem like they had good footing. I know they didn't allow any sacks, but even I don't know if it was Juwan Taylor or the other individual on the opposite side, but someone allowed 15 point something percent pressures. And that's just an astronomical high amount of pressures. And it was visible. It was apparent. And on top of it, Kelce being out was something I thought Mahomes could overcome easily. But what I noticed in the game was Kelce really is his safety blanket. He really is his second, third read. And outside of that initial read, if it's not there for Mahomes and he's not comfortable, he actually looked like at times, which is crazy to say, he was not comfortable and he didn't know what to do with the ball. And I feel like we haven't even seen that in his entire career and stuff like that. And overall, no discredit to the Lions. I think they played a great game and their fourth quarter was very impressive. I thought the amount of yards gained and everything like that with their fourth quarter, they earned the win at that point in time. But overall, as a game in 60 minutes, I thought the Chiefs lost that game entirely. I think, if you asked Andy Reid pregame, hey, how do you like it if we hold that Lions offense to 14 points scored? He would have probably, if he could, put money on the Chiefs to win that game because that's a beautiful situation you want to be in when it comes to your opposition. So just one of those games that I don't think it was pretty by any stretch of the imagination, and the Chiefs overall lost it a little bit more than the Lions won it, but no discredit to the Lions. Impressive win. Hopefully Detroit Lions fans are enjoying it all throughout the night and the weekend because that's a big win for them.
My biggest takeaway was a couple things. One, I think you're right on with the tackles. They got a lot of credit this offseason for aggressively addressing their tackles with Jawan Taylor on the right side, Dominic Smith on the left side. And at least through one game, that does not look good. And there was reason to be skeptical about that. And you mentioned the fact that off the left side, they had a higher percentage of pass rush versus what Orlando Brown Jr. did all last year for the Chiefs. The other point of this, though, is you have to mention the Travis Kelce effect, which you already did. But how long is this injury going to linger? I don't know that this is something where Travis Kelce is just going to be fine in 10 days. This is probably going to be something he has to play through. And they took a swing last year on Kadarius Toney, spent a third-round pick on a former first-round player where talent was never supposed to be the issue. The issue is what's between his ears. And last night, you can point to two very clear moments where he had a chance to swing that game, and it swung the other way because of a play he didn't make. And the larger point, the bigger point, I don't think this means the Chiefs are doomed. I don't think the Chiefs are going to go away. I think it's a week one game. But the larger point here is they all count. And at the end of the year, when you add them up, this is going to be a game in the loss column for the Chiefs. And that is going to be ultra valuable for a team like the Bills, a team like the Bengals, a team like the Ravens, any team you want to name. And we've seen this before. The Bills win at Arrowhead the last 2 years, but they don't get enough wins along the way to keep the Chiefs behind them. And the ultimate goal of the Bills this season has to not only be to make the playoffs and win their division, but to make those playoff games be in Buffalo. So that was a good result. And it looks like Chad is very excited. One loss for Justin, also with the comment on one loss for KC, which is big. All right, Luka, let's not waste any more time because I'm fired up. Monday Night Football, the Bills and the Jets. And I want to start with a big picture topic before we start diving into matchups, which we will certainly do here in a bit. The Jets are home. They are the hype machine of all hype machines this offseason. And, it's 9/11. I'm certainly not making light of that, but 9/11 in New York is certainly a huge deal, understandably so. Which team do you think has more pressure to win this game on Monday?
The Jets. I don't even want to try to long lead this. The Jets have absolutely way more pressure on them going into this week one game. And I say that with two kind of reasons why. One reason, the Jets side of the reason, the hype machine, they've essentially gotten not quite the same level or just same expectation hype machine as the Bills preseason last year, but it feels like they're the media darling. They're the one that you want to talk about. Understandably so. Let me just say this. It makes sense when it comes to market and pull and interest, when hitting a large audience. The Jets are much more interesting and they're in a massive market where they're going to get pull, but they have been the talk of the offseason, and Aaron Rodgers, of course, being at the top of all of that. When it comes to that, though, the Bills haven't been talked at all about. They're almost a forgotten entity in the NFL. They are still a legitimate team. They still get their respect. But then also at the same time, it's just, what you get out of them. So everyone just wants to talk about the other thing. So all eyes are going to be interested on how does Aaron Rodgers look behind that Jets offensive line and in that team, in a new environment, in a different uniform. How does this defense now kind of step up and not have the excuse of they would shine better and get more wins if it wasn't for the quarterback on the other side? A lot of things and questions are there for the Jets team. Whereas on the other side of things, in the second answer to this, there's just not a whole heck of a lot of questions with the Bills. It's just, can they not disappoint like it seems like they did last year? Can they finally rise to the occasion of this season when no one's talking about them and still get their work done? Can they be still the expected one of the top Super Bowl favorites in this league still, even though no one's talking about them, and then put up on that night? That's the only question there really is about the Bills. And since they're not kind of that darling of the offseason and just the team that everyone wants to talk about, all eyes are on the Jets. Everyone's interested about the Jets. And no matter what happens in the result, the first lead item that Tuesday morning will be about the Jets. Whether it's a win or a loss, it doesn't matter. That will be the lead off. So therefore, the pressure is absolutely 1000% on the Jets come Monday night.
Justin, my guy, you're apologizing for chatting too much. It is Christmas Eve. We have NFL games in 2 days. There is no such thing as chatting too much. I'm excited that you're excited. We're all excited. Let's enjoy this together. There are no judgments on this show. We appreciate the support. If you're out there watching on YouTube, like our friend Justin is, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It helps us out so much on that Built-in Buffalo YouTube page that we are trying to grow and make your one-stop shop for all Buffalo Bills content. Luka, I agree with you. I think the pressure is on the Jets. And what's interesting about that is the Bills are favored in this game by 2.5 points. Last time I checked, you're certainly more up to date with that than I am. And the Bills are the team that the last couple years has made the playoffs and been the media darling and fallen short. And then there was whatever the Stephon Diggs drama, which seems more manufactured than reality. And you would think that would equate to the Bills better come out strong. But I'm like you. I think for the Jets, this is a team in the Bills that you beat last year with Zach Wilson. Aaron Rodgers was your golden ticket. And now you have the Bills in your building week one without Von Miller. And if you can't win this game, then when are you going to win? And this is the statement game. This to me reminds me so much of the 03 Bills against the Patriots when they went out and signed Takeel Spikes, Sam Adams. They got Lawyer Malloy the week of the game, and they had the Patriots week 1. And if they would have lost that game, it would have felt like we spent an entire offseason bragging about this team, and we just lost to the team we were chasing in their building. So I think all the pressure's on the Jets. I think if the Bills lose this game, unless it's a 41-10, they don't look competitive, they can't block anybody, there's a pile of injuries. I think if the Bills lose this game, there's a very realistic possibility that we're sitting here after that like, well, that sucks. You kind of saw it coming with the momentum and how excited that stadium was. We'll see them later in the year. We haven't lost a home game yet. Let's get ready for the Raiders. Where for the Jets, if they lose that game, I cannot wait to see Mike Greenberg's reaction the next day on Get Up, because he has been very, very, very obnoxious. All right, Luka, when you look at this Jets matchup, there are a lot of things to like about this team, but in my opinion, it starts with their defense. What is your biggest concern for the Bills going into this matchup?
Sometimes the obvious is just the thing you need to talk about. And the obvious thing is the question that comes to the trenches when the Bills offense is on the field versus that Jets defense. And it's just in there, whoever is on the defensive line for the Jets lined up against the Bills offensive line, and those 5 individuals, can they hold up? Can they get the work done? Because quite literally, that Jets D line is very, very, very impressive. And I don't think that's any surprise to anyone. I mean, these aren't new guys to any of us. At least you can say they're starting 4, even a couple depth pieces that have been there, and they're high-end caliber individuals like Jermaine Johnson, their first round pick from last year, is still not even in the starting rotation when it comes to their defensive line. And he's a high-end caliber edge. So when it comes to those individuals and that matchup in particular, I could talk about anything else out there. I could talk about our receivers and kind of the refreshed receiver room versus their secondary, which is decently impressive, especially on the boundary. But the bottom line is the obvious is what it is. And it is our offensive line against that Jets D line, because to me, what I need the Bills offensive line to do is just hold up. Hold course. I don't need them to be impressive. I don't need them to kind of blow things up and command everything at the offensive line, or at the line of scrimmage, I should say. What I need them to do is just not be the disaster that could potentially happen due to the high-end level of talent on the Jets defensive line. I need them to just hold course, do their job, and then let all the talent that's around there that then the Bills can elevate do their thing with Josh Allen, Diggs, so on and so forth. So to me, the number one thing, and number 1 and 2 things, are really just that D line versus our O line and what the heck is going to be transpiring on that Monday night.
I'm with you, and I see there's questions in chat about what we think the offense should do, and we are certainly going to get into that. I have some ways that I think the Bills can and probably will try to attack this Jets front. And Justin brings up one point here. I don't know how well we can run against the Jets. I will tell you, Justin, as good as this Jets defense is, they are not great against the run. They are fairly average. They wound up average last year. I think they were 15th against the run in total. That is not their calling card. Luka, you mentioned the guys they have on defense. Obviously, Quinnen Williams is a star. After that, I don't think they have stars. I think they have a bunch of very good players. Carl Lawson, Quentin Jefferson's a guy that Bills fans will remember, a little bit more of a rotational guy. Solomon Thomas, a former first-round pick. John Franklin Myers is a good player. Michael Clemens was actually a better rookie last year than Jermaine Johnson, who Luka already mentioned. And oh, by the way, they went back into the well and drafted Will McDonald IV in the first round this year. I will tell you my thought about what the Bills are going to need to do this game is, one, Osiris Torrance, you got to put your big boy pants on. You're a rookie. You're going to go against Quinnen Williams. Connor McGovern, I hope you're healthy. I know you're dealing with, he's not on the injury report, but I'm looking at the Bills' 2 guards against Quinnen Williams because that is certainly an area of concern. But this is where I want to get into my first strategical idea for the Bills here, Luke, and I want to see what you think about this. I think what the Bills need to do in this game is get the ball out of Josh Allen's hands quick. Last year, the Bills were held to 21 points or less in the regular season 3 times. 2 times it was by the New York Jets. When you look under the hood of that game, what the Jets try to do on defense, they are a base 4-man front, and they do not blitz. They keep 7 in coverage, and they dare you to go deep. Numbers shared by Joe Marino on Locked On Bills, mind-blowing stat. This is a great stat by him. The Jets were 32nd in the NFL in blitzing last year, Luka. They were still third in the entire league in pressure rate. If you're the lowest blitzing team and you're still top 3 in pressure rate, you are getting home with a 4-man rush. So what the Bills need to do is not be the Bills we saw last year, which was, hey, we are a go deep team. We know they're trying to prevent the deep ball, but we're going to throw into the teeth of their defense. The Bills need to be patient. They need to take that underneath route. I like Dalton Kincaid. I like Dawson Knox. My favorite idea in this matchup, though, Luka, and this is my first strategy for the Bills. I want to run it by you. Stephon Diggs in the slot. This accomplishes 2 things. One, as good as Sauce Gardner is, he is not a matchup cornerback. He stays on his side. Reed stays on his side. Maybe that's something they add to his game in year 2, but that was not something he did last year. So now you get Diggs on Michael Carter. I love that matchup. 2, you have Stephon Diggs presenting himself early in his route as a weapon for Josh Allen, and those 2 are simpatico on what's going on post-snap where the Jets like to try to confuse you. And then 3, you get Trent Sherfield out wide in the Diggs spot, and now you have Sherfield and Gabe Davis for run blocking. I like that strategy. I don't think Diggs is going to play the entire game in the slot. I think we will see a bunch of Dalton Kincaid, but what do you think about that particular strategy?
I'm glad you kind of mentioned that last point there. What I would say is I would expect a healthy dose of Diggs inside the numbers, we'll call it, because that's where I think that it can happen for this Bills offense. And that's where I would think that they're going to try to achieve things, because I mentioned it even when you asked me originally, kind of what's the thing that stands out first with this Jets defense. And of course I went with D-line, but I mentioned those corners. I mentioned the perimeter secondary that they have. That is their strength of their secondary. That's the strength of their coverage. With that in mind, you need to now do things. And I know you've mentioned in the past, their safeties are not overwhelmingly impressive. They're just kind of role players and stuff like that. So you need to attack what is you could consider their weakness. And that's just inside the numbers. Do everything inside the numbers. That's why you would expect more out of Kincaid, and then bring Diggs in on occasion into that slot role. Because Diggs and Allen, they have something that's an unspoken kind of word on what they need to do at certain times. I mean, Diggs even mentioned that on the McAfee show earlier this week, where there are just moments where it's a glance, it's a hand signal, it's whatever it is. And Diggs is, 30 yards to his right or whatever it might be. And they know exactly what the heck to do, what's going on. They both see the same thing in front of them pre-snap, and then they see it kind of transpire in front of them post-snap, and it makes big plays happen. I think this is the kind of game where I don't want to call it you need to live with what the defense gives you, because I think there will be opportunities to be had. You just got to be smart about those ones, and those will most likely live inside the numbers. Those aren't going to be on the perimeter like we normally see with the Bills offense. And I do think what you brought up is a great point. Last year, they went into these games, especially the one at MetLife last season, where then Josh Allen tore his whatever it was, or injured
UCL.
Yeah, UCL. Thank you. I can never remember what the heck that thing is. When he injured himself in that game, it almost seemed like after Allen ran in for 2 scores, I believe it was early, they were just so wanting to hit those deep shots and stuff. It's like, hey, see what's in front of you and kind of reel it in a little bit, because pressure's getting home. The time isn't there. And then actually there's this bubble of window of opportunity inside the numbers and kind of 10 yards down the field that you can hit them. But maybe they just didn't feel like they had the weapons at the time to achieve such a thing like that. So maybe the game plan can be bring in your best weapon, that is Diggs, inside in the slot, stuff of that nature. You have your Kincaid package, you got your 12 personnel that you're probably going to try to deploy this game. And those are all things that I like for the Bills going into this game, because that does kind of bring a strength to where the defensive weakness is for the Jets. So I like the idea that you're bringing up here. I like the idea of bringing Diggs into the slot more. I think that's something we can definitely expect to see, hopefully. But overall, it's not something you live with, of course. It's not going to be just his permanent role in this game. It's just something you need to do occasionally to kind of move that chess piece around and keep the Jets defense kind of guessing or understanding what they're trying to see in front of them, so that you can stay that step ahead of them, because ultimately that's what you need to do in a game of chess. You need to always be ahead of your opponent, and that's one great way to do so.
So real quick, we have a super chat from my daughter, Lily. So of course I'm going to pause the show and say, what's up, Lily? I love you. Have fun at your sleepover tonight. Thank you for watching, and enjoy your movie night. All right, Luka, one more thing on offense for the Bills before we spin it around to defense. I want to talk about another thing that I think will be playing a big role for the Bills in this game, and that's Josh Allen running. Here's a stat for you. Last year in two games against the Jets, Josh Allen ran total 13 times for 133 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. I don't think that was by accident. One thing we saw the Jets do a lot against the Bills was a single high man across the board look, in which the Bills were like, okay, well, if you're going to play man against us, we're going to unleash Josh Allen. The other thing is, while the Bills were going deep constantly, the receivers and the DBs were downfield, so Josh Allen was able to run. I think that the Bills are going to make the Jets prove that they can stop the Josh Allen running. And I think they're going to try to run them out of that deep coverage shell they like so the Bills can take their shots. The Bills are kind of playing left-handed if they have to jab at you. We saw them do it effectively against the Rams in the opener last year, and it was super impressive. But we know that the Bills want to take their shots. And one way you can get a team out of playing that deep coverage is running effectively. And that certainly includes Josh Allen. I don't know what the over-under is on Josh Allen in this game on rushing, but I certainly think you could see him get 60, 70 yards in this game, Luka.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned it even earlier, the game in MetLife, he started out with 2 rushing scores in the first half, and it's clearly there. The thing that the Jets defense really doesn't have, at least in that front 7, is team speed. They really lack there. Jamie and Sherwood, I believe, is almost a 4.8 guy, where that for a weak linebacker, that's pretty slow in the modern NFL. And it's just, if he can get out and get through contain, which I would imagine the Jets are going to try to do as much as they can, because just as dangerous as Josh Allen is in the pocket, he's just elite everywhere. He's even more so outside the pocket, of course. And it's like they're going to do everything they can to contain him there, because then also once he gets out, he can do what we're talking about here, and he can use his legs, and he's one of the better running backs in the league. Also, by the way, he has a cannon. So it's just like one of those things where if he can get outside of contain and use his legs, this Jets defense doesn't really have a lot of answers for that. They don't have enough team speed in that front 7 to kind of keep it underneath. So then therefore you're almost relying on those DBs to catch up to it. And Josh Allen against a DB in the open field, how you doing? Keep it moving. He's either going through you or around you, and he can do both things, or he can go over top of you, as we've seen a few times. So it doesn't take a whole heck of a lot. I don't need him to run all the time, but if the opportunities are there, which I imagine they will be, like we're talking about here, still take advantage of them. Just be smart about it. Like we always talk about, you don't need to kind of put your shoulder through an individual unless it's a DB, because I'll be honest, I'll take Josh Allen up against a DB any day of the week. But overall, don't be going shoulder to shoulder with linebackers and D linemen. Just take the yards you're given and have a good one. But overall, I could definitely see his legs being a great one. I'd love to know what his line is. I haven't even thought about that. I'm not sure that line is necessarily out yet. I'll definitely look at that right now.
Are you feeling okay? You haven't thought about it. You've been thinking about these bets since February. There's no shot you haven't thought about it, but I understand that that particular stat hasn't crossed your desk yet. Oh my gosh, chat is going crazy. We love you all. Thank you so much for choosing to hang out with us on Friday night. It is never lost on us when you all choose to hang out with us to kick off your weekend. We appreciate the hell out of all of you. I'm trying to get to all these comments I see. If I don't get to it, if I don't respond, please don't take it personally. Super chats are an easier way for us to see them. Certainly not saying you have to do that. We still try to get to everyone. Let's spin it around though, Luka. Let's talk about the offense for the Jets and the defense for the Bills. Obviously, a little sloppy description on my part there. And let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. He was the big fish, the big ticket item, but I think there were some signs last year that Aaron Rodgers is on a decline. Now, he doesn't have to be the MVP level quarterback for the Jets for this to be an effective signing. They were playing with you and me at quarterback last year with Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco and Mike White. And so if Aaron Rodgers is just a baseline level, mid-level starter, the Jets should be good enough around him to be effective. But when you look at his stats last year, he fell off in a lot of stat categories. His completion percentage in his MVP seasons were 70 and 68. He was down to 64 last season. His yardage in his MVP seasons were 4,900, 4,300. He was 3,600 last year. The last 3 seasons in Green Bay combined before 2022, so 2019, 2020, 2021, he threw a total of 16 interceptions in 3 seasons. He had 12 last year. So, Luka, I know the easy answer is, well, Devontae Adams was gone. It shook everything up. Nathaniel Hackett went to Denver. He had a new OC. But you obviously watch Aaron Rodgers very closely. What do you think the truth is on him? Is he a player that could have a Russell Wilson like, oh boy, he has nothing left in the tank. What Rodgers version are we going to see this year?
There's still something in the tank. I'm not the kind of individual who's going to sit here and say that, because what we saw last year, I think, is just Rodgers finally not having what I'll call a high enough athleticism to make those truly magical plays happen. And then those 2 MVP years, he would still be able to crack it open and kind of break glass in case of emergency, let's say 5 times a season. And it was like, oh my God, there's Rodgers. There's the Rodgers we've known forever. But every other time he didn't need to, because he did have that high end wide receiver one, the best receiver in the league. Probably, I mean, it's up for discussion, of course, but Devontae Adams is clearly up there. And I'm not disrespecting Garrett Wilson, but I don't think he's quite there yet. I mean, that's a very high echelon kind of wide receiver. He can get there, it seems like. But overall, I think where Rodgers might not be as flashy anymore is he doesn't have that bailout guy as much as often. And then he doesn't have that overwhelming athleticism to kind of break glass, get out there and just flick 150 yards wherever it needs to go, across the field, up the field, doesn't matter. He's never been that guy to use his legs, but what he is he's creative in the way he kind of moves around, gets outside, things like that, and just creates better throwing lanes and opportunities for himself all these seasons. He even comes out and says he knows he's not as athletic as athletic, man, tripped up on that one, as he once was. So overall, it's like there will be times where maybe his brain kicks in. And I think that's what we saw sometimes last season, where he thinks he can still do it, or his body or reactions, or kind of just he's not even thinking about it. He just knows he used to be able to do something, and kind of father time just caught up to him a little bit. It happens to everyone. It happens to all athletes. It just comes with the territory of getting older. He's still a very good quarterback. I just think his ability to make those high-end wow plays are really reduced now. And on top of it, you just need good offensive lineman play in front of him to do so. And that's where I look at the Jets and I'm like, I don't see that there. So how are those things going to happen for him? He's still got it there for the most part. I just don't know if he's ever going to be able to kind of replicate those MVP level seasons and that play anymore, because it's at that brink right now. It's kind of, he can still probably do it. It's just, can he actually do it when the moment is there anymore? I don't know. He's not, dead or anything. He's far from that. But I think his days of being a top 5 quarterback are kind of in the rear view mirror at this point in time.
I'm with you. And I want to say that I don't think he has to be great, but I also think that the easy answer this offseason has been, oh, wow, look at the Jets. They were just missing a quarterback. They almost made the playoffs last year with nobody at quarterback. So put Aaron Rodgers here and it's amazing. And the default setting we've all had is, look how much talent's going to be around Aaron Rodgers. And I want to circle back to a comment Roy Collins made in chat that I fully agree with. We will get to the offensive line issues in a second, but other than Garrett Wilson, which wide receiver for the Jets are you most concerned about? And that is a fantastic question, because my answer, Roy Collins, is none. And when I look at this Jets set of skill players, I'm going to include Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall in this conversation, at least here on the first week of the NFL season. Garrett Wilson is the only blue chip weapon they have outside of Aaron Rodgers. And I think the Bills need to do everything in their power to make Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, Mecole Hardman, CJ Uzoma, and the running backs beat them. Don't let Garrett Wilson be a game breaker, because I think he's excellent. And I think the rest of the guys are just kind of guys. Breece Hall is a different discussion. He looked like a star last year, but where he's at in his post ACL recovery makes me think, Luka, that we're probably not going to see the explosive Breece Hall, at least early on. And if I had to guess right now, I might guess that Dalvin Cook gets more work than Breece Hall on Monday.
It's a fair guess. I mean, we're speculating. You see a lot of the younger athletes with ACL tears come back a little bit sooner than you would expect and still be okay, but only naturally. It's there because I think the tear was probably week 6, week 7, if I recall correctly. I know it was kind of mid fall, maybe even approaching winter at that point. I just know it was in Denver, to be quite honest. But overall, I just look at it and it's like, yeah, the first couple weeks, I imagine that's what the Dalvin signing is there for. They really want to go 50-50, maybe even lean on Dalvin early on. You have someone that's still kind of there early on to do some things. And then eventually you can let Breece Hall ease his way back into being that high-end kind of playmaker he is, and we saw pre-injury. There is nothing in me that thinks Breece Hall won't get back right to it as soon as he's 100%. And I think that will happen. I think when the Bills have to come around and play the Jets again, at that point in time, as long as nothing else happened, I expect 100% Breece Hall at that point in time. And that will be scary to me. I think Breece Hall is kind of an X factor guy in the backfield. He showed it already last season before he got hurt, like I said. And I just think it's fortunate for the Bills in this circumstance that if I find it hard to believe if he would be 100% here. I'm with you on that point. I think Dalvin Cook is kind of the guy where they could lean on him on an over 50% share. They're still going to try to get Breece Hall in there, I imagine, if he is good to go. But Dalvin's here for the early part here. Dalvin's here to me to kind of help ease Breece Hall back. And then Dalvin Cook can take the back seat once Breece Hall is kind of unleashed and ready to go again at 100%. So it's nothing about the guy's talent. He just needs to kind of ease back in. And Dalvin's kind of a nice insurance policy there for the early games.
I agree with you. And I think people are making too much out of the Dalvin Cook signing. I really do. And I think there were signs that he was a regressing football player last year. I know Bills fans all want to raise their hand. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I remember seeing at Highmark Stadium him running 60 yards downfield against the Bills. Look, I probably get 10 yards on that carry. The way the Bills played defense, I think I could probably get a first down. I couldn't. I'm not serious about that. But I think you take Zach Moss in that spot. Zach Moss probably breaks that for a touchdown. That was a well-blocked play, a poorly defended play, but overall, Dalvin Cook's body of work in 2022 was not impressive at all when you look at EPA. I have another strategy I want to get to, Luka, before we really dive into this offensive line, because I know you're just itching to talk about some things they have going on there. So we talked about the fact that this is going to be Aaron Rodgers' first start on the Jets, his first time playing a professional football game with Garrett Wilson, with Mecole Hardman, with the tight ends, with the running backs. He does have familiarity with Lazard and Cobb. With the Bills having Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer back, my favorite thing that they have available to them is post-snap confusion. Last year, it felt like they got away from it because Hyde and Poyer, for as great as they are, the best thing about them is they read each other like a book, and they can really confuse the offense by showing one thing pre-snap, and then right at the snap of the ball, they switch to something else, and they make you figure it out on the fly. You have a quarterback playing his first game with a bunch of new weapons, and you know that the Nate Hackett offense is all about West Coast and timing. I expect Sean McDermott, especially with Hyde and Poyer in his pocket. It seems like Hyde is trending toward playing. He got a full practice in today. His wife said he was good on the Bills Mafia Babes Facebook page, so all signs look good there. I expect Sean McDermott to major in post-snap confusion in this game and just make the Jets receivers and Rodgers prove that after only one August together, they are all on the same page to figure it out on the fly.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it in a roundabout way, even during the preseason, where the decision for cornerback 2 was really kind of coming down to a couple things, not just singularly who's the best man for the job, but also who can Hyde and Poyer trust in that secondary overall, because there is that element to things where Poyer's come out and said, and Hyde has also done himself, they need to be able to trust that individual with whatever they're communicating, whatever they're trying to achieve. And they know they get that out of Trey White. They just need that other guy opposite of them to do the same. And I think that key of those two being back there up top, just doing whatever it is they do, they need to be able to get back to that creative confusion, not giving just the same old look. And I do think that is something in a weird way or a roundabout way or just a different way that kind of you're bringing up here. That's something we can expect to see throughout the entire season. Now, that's part of the defensive coordinator change that's being made. I think being kind of stuck in the same old look was happening too often the past couple seasons. It was just really kind of, you could gamble on expecting too high safety the entire season and probably be right, let's say 80% of the times coming up against the Bills defense, which to put it back, it's impressive that they were a top 5 defense all the time when you know, offensive coordinators could expect just this simple base look out of it majority of the times, and they still didn't know what to do with it. That just tells you the high-end talent that is on this Bills defense. But overall, I expect changes of look. I expect things to happen when it comes to seeing Poyer and Hyde slide around, move around, in their levels in depth of the actual secondary, and then also have that communication happening with Trey and Benford. Let's go on the opposite side there at corner 2, and just everyone being on the same page when it comes to change of looks, change of coverage, depending on who's covering deep and who's actually playing those hook zones in the mid zone area. Like whatever needs to happen, I expect a lot more fluidity and change to be occurring, with Hyde and Poyer being the key to that. Because if you only have one of those two and you have a DeMar Hamlin or a Taylor Rapp or someone else out there that's not quite as familiar with it than these two are, I think you do have to lean back on just more basic things. You have to just keep it simple, stupid. Let's just do the things we know we're great at and just to try to play as best as you can with that. With those two back, you can get a lot more creative. You can do a lot of different things, and you need to have that upper hand on a guy of Aaron Rodgers' talent who just has seen it all. Aaron Rodgers has seen everything. There's not one thing you can expect to get by him overall. You just need to do things in a very creative manner to try to catch him off guard post snap, so that, you know, you create that extra second for your edge or whatever it might be, so that you can create incompletions, create turnovers, and create opportunities to get the ball back for your offense. So I like this thought. I like this idea. And I do expect things like that to happen.
Linda West, thank you so much. You're always such a loyal listener to our show, and you always show so much support. We appreciate that super chat so much. And we hope you have a fabulous weekend, Linda, and you enjoy that Bills game. But Linda, Justin, Pete, Tom, everybody I see in chat, get ready, because in about 5 minutes, we're going to get into predictions, and I want to see your predictions in chat. Let me know what the score prediction is going to be. I've seen a couple already come in. We'll try to get them up on screen. One last topic on this game, Luka, and it's been a big one for you, I know. This Jets offensive line, what kind of form is it going to be in week 1? And let's just outline some of the issues going on. One, their outstanding young right guard, Elijah Vera Tucker, is coming off of an ACL injury mid last season. So he is going to play, but what version of himself is he going to be week 1? I think he's a player that could look a lot better by mid season. Their right tackle, Mekhi Becton, has been consistently inconsistent since coming into the league. He's had weight issues. When he's good, he is really, really good. But the problem is, 1, he can't stay healthy, and 2, he plays inconsistently. Interesting note on Mekhi Becton: had a limited practice yesterday, didn't practice today with an illness. On Friday, I know it's a Monday night game, that's not nothing. And then on the left side, Luka, Dwayne Brown is a guy that has been a good offensive tackle for his entire career, but he's almost 40 years old now. At some point in time, it has to fall off the rails. And he wasn't a great player last year, and he was injured much of the summer and is right now dealing with a shoulder injury, got in limited practices. He is slated to start. How do you think the Bills' defensive line without Von Miller matches up with these Jets, and what kind of a concern is it for you if you were a Jets fan?
If I was a Jets fan, I'd be concerned. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of unknown variables with their offensive line. I think you highlighted a lot of them very, very well. I look at this game and I think their best offensive lineman is their center. I think the second Connor McGovern, I just won't call him the first one. It's just, God, that's so confusing. But overall, I think he's going to be their most consistent and reliable guy in this matchup. Just because Vera Tucker, who I think is probably better, not probably, he is better at full health. As you pointed out, I don't think he will be 100%. He's going to be just trying to hold his own. And then that left side with Brown and Tomlinson, I have a lot of questions about it. I really, really do. I mean, Brown is more age, but Tomlinson's not impressive in his own right. And when you look at the Bills' defensive line, on that side, most likely you're going to see Leonard Floyd. They like to rotate and move around, of course, but this is a game where a healthy, energized Leonard Floyd coming into it to then attack that kind of side of this offensive line, that could create big, big problems for the Jets, because I think Leonard Floyd is the type of individual who can absolutely exploit Dwayne Brown. Like, he is the bad matchup for Dwayne Brown, because I think Leonard Floyd can kind of just create speed on the edge, but then also can kind of counter off of that and then get inside rushes occasionally. You've seen it out of him in the past. That's kind of where he excels. He's got a 1-2 punch to him. Kind of that's his edge style. So overall, I love Leonard Floyd in this game. I think he is the guy to highlight. Everything like that when it comes to him, I'm very, very excited for. And then Rousseau's back to 100% himself. I think Rousseau can have a breakout year. It's just, you look at this defensive line for the Bills, and they're at full health, even without Vaughn, will take that away. And I just really think that they can cause havoc for this Jets. I trust, or I expect the Bills defensive line to create more havoc because it's more of a mismatch in my eyes than the opposite side when it comes to the Jets D line and then the Bills offensive line. I think there's a better chance for that matchup to hold its own, hold par. There will be moments and occasion. Quinnen Williams is still a beast of an individual, so you just accept those things. But I don't see their high-end edge guys. They're just kind of, we'll call them role players, role edges. Whereas the Bills have individuals who can play high end. They do have high end edges. And then they still have Daquan Jones, who can be a wrecking force himself in the interior. Ed Oliver, if he decides to show up, can be a dude. It's not Thanksgiving, so I'm not going to hold my breath on it. Shots fired, pew pew. But overall,
Not August either.
It's not August either. But overall, I like the matchup a lot when it comes to the Bills defensive line and the Jets offensive line, because there's just way too many question marks with the Jets.
Roy Collins wants to know if Floyd is bendy like Miller. Well, honestly, nobody's really bendy like Miller. I know what you mean, though, Roy, that he is more of a speed rusher, but he is so long and big that he can also win with length, similar to Rousseau. He's kind of the total package at edge. And I agree with Luka. I do think that he and Rousseau are the two key ones to watch, although Epinesa will certainly be out there. This will not be, in my opinion, a big sack production game for the Bills, just because of how quickly the Jets want to get rid of the ball. I think it's more about forcing Aaron Rodgers to get rid of it quickly, and then that back end confusion by McDermott, hopefully forcing him into mistakes. I want to comment here about something John Roberts said. ABC will have the game on for those of us who use Spectrum. That is a real pain point for some folks out there, Luka. There's a deal right now with Spectrum where ESPN is not on Spectrum, I believe. I don't have Spectrum, but people missed out on college football last week.
Yep.
Friends, listen to Uncle Josh. I have a great tip for you. Sign up for Fubo TV tonight. Fubo TV. I know what you're thinking. I can't afford Fubo TV. It doesn't matter. You get 7 days free. 7 days free. It'll get you through this first weekend of NFL action. You won't have to worry about missing out on anything on ESPN. You cancel on Tuesday, and I promise you, ESPN will be back by next weekend. It's not a coincidence they waited until the first week of the regular season to really have this arm wrestling match. It's just how it goes. Deadlines make deals. They'll get it figured out. But please sign up for Fubo TV. You won't regret it. You'll get free TV for a weekend. Go ahead and cancel it. Wait to cancel it, though, until football's over, because I will say, once you cancel it, you lose your free. It's not like you cancel it and you still get the 6 days. When you cancel it, it's out. So just wait till Monday or Tuesday, cancel it, and we're good to go. So, Luka, it is now time to predict this Bills-Jets game. We've been waiting all offseason for it. When the schedule came out, it was a chef's kiss match. Chef's kiss. I sound like Sean Connery there. But I'm going to give you the floor here.
Ooh.
Let us know. Okay, first of all, confirm. What's the updated spread? Still 2.5?
So the spread's still 2.5 right now.
Okay.
Across the board, everywhere.
So Luka and I are competitive people. If you've been with us long enough, you know this. So we are going to keep track of how we do in Bills predictions, both overall and against the spread. I want to hear from all of you in chat. How are the Bills going to do? Give me a score prediction. Do they win? Do they lose? We'll get as many up on screen as we can. Start firing them off for us. Luka, Bills, Jets, Monday night. How's it going to go?
So with this game, I've been preaching it all preseason. This is going to be an ugly game. I don't expect highlights galore. I don't expect a shootout, as much as I would love that for Aaron Rodgers versus Josh Allen, version 3 now at this point in their careers, respectively. They haven't been shootouts the first 2 times, unfortunately, even the one that I saw in person. But it's going to be an ugly game. And we talked about a lot of things tonight. And the one thing that I made sure I emphasized was, to me, the X factor of this game. And that really is the Bills D-line, specifically Leonard Floyd and AJ Epinesa and Gregory Rousseau. Although I am going to highlight Leonard Floyd in this situation. Leonard Floyd primarily does play on that right side, and that is primarily matched up against your Dwayne Brown situation. And to me, when it comes to containing the edge on the run, keeping things, getting the ball out quicker when it comes to Aaron Rodgers and creating opportunities for potential turnovers and just end of drives. Leonard Floyd is a guy I really am highlighting as potentially that X factor, but overall that right edge is kind of I circle a lot because Mekhi Becton will have his own issues in his own right on the opposite side, on the Jets right side, the Bills left edge side. I think they're going to target that right side. I do expect blitzing and things like that to happen as well, where they need to be able to pick that up on the fly a lot, and I do question that as well when it comes to the Jets. So with that in mind, that's where I think the X factor and kind of the overwhelming thing happens with the Bills. In this game, I've been saying, and if you did not catch our season preview, I'm sticking with the same score line. It is plus 13,000 if you want to bet a correct score, by the way. But overall, I really expect the Bills to come out with the win in an ugly game, 23-16. They will cover the spread. They will win. It's just going to be one of those classic divisional games where it's nothing pretty about it, but you just got to get the job done on the road, take care of business in the limelight that is Monday Night Football, and come home 1-0 and then get to work on week 2.
Keep those predictions coming in. Luka has the Bills winning. Luka will now take the controls of bumping those predictions up on the screen. All right, Luka, we know the concerns. The Jets' defensive line is a problem. And we talked about how with the Bills having a rookie right guard in Torrance and maybe not 100% left guard in McGovern, guys like Quinnen Williams and Solomon Thomas can really wreak havoc on the Bills and make things tough up front. So I do think that for the Bills to be successful in this game, they have to play left-handed a bit. I think they do need to rely on their running game with James Cook. I do think there'll be room to run against this Jets defense because what the Jets want to do is they want to play back and force you to go underneath. And teams like the Bills, who love to be aggressive, play into the teeth of their defense. I think the Bills need to be patient, take what's underneath of them, run the ball, and be okay with 10, 12 play drives as long as they end up in points. I do think we will see Stephon Diggs in the slot in this game quite a bit. I think, one, it gets him away from Sauce Gardner, or it forces Sauce Gardner to go somewhere he didn't play a lot of last year. He's not normally a travel cornerback. He and Reed each play either side. I think Diggs in the slot is something we'll see quite a bit in this game to present himself as a weapon early in the rep for Josh Allen. And then on the defensive side, Luka, I do expect Sean McDermott to empty the bag against these Jets. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback that you're going to be able to sack very much. He likes to get rid of the ball. But the thing is, you mentioned it, Leonard Floyd, Rousseau. Can you collapse the pocket? Can you force him to make quick reads? And then with Hyde and Poyer back, which is going to be such a beautiful sight to see 23 and 21 back on the field. I cannot wait for that moment. The confusion that those two can create post-snap with the flexibility, with how much they know each other, how interchangeable they are, where at pre-snap it looks like one thing, and then as soon as the ball snapped, the defense completely changes. Let's just see how on the same page these Jets receivers are with a quarterback playing his first professional game for that team. Now, I do think that the Jets are going to throw the bag at the Bills. I don't think they're just going to sit back in coverage and let the Bills pick them apart underneath. You will see Robert Saleh empty the bag. He'll blitz if he has to. He'll go man coverage, cover one, like you saw him do last year. I think Josh Allen's legs will be a factor. Luka, you had the over-under on Josh Allen's rushing stats, right?
Correct. It's 35.5. I love that over.
Over. Smash the over. Josh Allen, big game, under the lights. This is a moment where he knows the world is watching. I promise you he's been hearing the Jets hype. I promise you he's been hearing the Bills are going to fall off. He's going to unlock Josh Allen, YOLO Josh Allen in a good way. So all of that, what does it amount to me? I do think, I want to say it was Roy Collins. Maybe it was Pete. I think it was Pete. I take it back. He said, this is a tough environment. It's 9/11. It's in New York. It's Rodgers' first game. That place is going to be absolutely wild. Unlike a lot of Bills games we have seen in recent years where it almost feels like a bowl game where the Bills are well represented with fans. I think it's going to be about 80% Jets fans in that building, super, super loud. And there is a chance that early on momentum will be in the Jets' favor. And if the Bills can survive that tidal wave or just go in there and smack them right in the face and score a touchdown right off the bat, that's how I think maybe it gets out of hand in the Bills' favor. But if the Bills can ride that wave, survive it, and not get avalanched early, I think the Bills are going to be able to stick around in this game. I think their experience together will win out. I have the Bills winning this game, Luka. This score is going to make us all nervous. I get it. 24-23. And this is the way I see it happening. I think Aaron Rodgers leads the Jets down with about 30 seconds to go. Greg Zuerlein kicks a field goal to give the Jets a 23-21 lead. 30 seconds to go. MetLife is going nuts. The TV commentators, Aikman and Buck, are going nuts. This is what the Jets needed last year. A quarterback who can pull them out of a fire. Aaron Rodgers with a clutch drive on Monday Night Football. And then here comes that dude, Josh Allen, onto the field, just casually walking into the huddle, dapping up Diggs, dapping up Dawkins, dapping up Gabe Davis, and they go right down the field, get in field goal range, and Tyler Bass walks it off. The Bills win 24-23 and remind everybody that, yes, the Jets are better, but this is still our division. So, Luka, hopefully we're both right. I have the Bills not covering the spread, unfortunately, because they only win by 1. You have the Bills covering the spread and winning outright. We want to thank all of you for your predictions. And Pete says, I don't need a heart attack ending. Pete, I feel you on that, my friend. If that scenario plays out, I will have sweat dripping out of places that I didn't even know existed on my body. There's an image for all of you to think about on this Friday night. But speaking of spreads and point spreads and all of that, Luka is going to not only tell us what's going to happen in this Bills Jets game like we just did, but we have a fun new segment coming up for this season of Bills Chat Live. And Luka, it is now time for our weekly edition of Luka's Locks. You are going to tell us 3 teams, whether it's against the spread, 3 bets that you think are locks this weekend. And sir, we are not just going to call you an expert and hope people believe us. We are going to keep track of your picks.
Of course.
And you better do well, Luka. And we are going to talk about which games you like this weekend, which results you like this weekend. And we're going to start it off with a matchup in Minnesota where Baker Mayfield takes over for Tom Brady. Will make his first start as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer quarterback. Seems to be some drama out there with Mike Evans. Todd Bowles is maybe hanging on by a thread as head coach. And then it's been an interesting offseason for the Vikings. They had a great season last year and then just went out with a wet fart in the playoffs against the Giants. The Vikings are a 5.5 point favorite at home as they open up against the Bucs. Luka, how do you see this game going?
Yeah, so this game is one of the most fascinating ones in the betting circles because a lot of the sharp money is on the Buccaneers. It was at 6 at one point. I believe it's now moved down to 5.5 across the board because of such sharp money coming in earlier this week. But the problem I have when it comes to the Bucs covering is the talk is all about the Vikings defense having a secondary that is questionable. And that means you have to rely on an individual such as Baker Mayfield in order to exploit that. And I just question everything about Baker coming into a new system with a defensive head coach where the philosophy might not be quite driven as much as if you had an offensive head coach. And then on top of that, you do have the question marks with Mike Evans and how committed he might be. Although I respect Mike Evans a lot, I don't necessarily play into that realm where unless he's not playing, I expect him to be a professional and he will be out there doing his thing. But I really don't expect those individuals to really elevate Baker Mayfield's game enough in the first game where ultimately they will be able to cover within a touchdown. So ultimately, I'm going to share almost screwed that one up. Let me just get that back here. I accidentally hit stop sharing. My apologies, everyone. This is what live production does for you.
I like that song there, though. It's a nice little kill time.
Ultimately, I like the Vikings to cover 5.5 against the Bucs. You can get it -110 on DraftKings, 1 unit on this, -115 on FanDuel. Currently, last I checked, it's 5.5 everywhere. Ultimately, the Vikings and Kirk Cousins are a well-oiled machine at this point. They are an individual team that loves to play at home one and can exploit a lot of different things. I think the Bucs defense is pretty kind of decent, but I don't look at them as overwhelmingly a team that can keep the Bucs in it. Eventually, Jordan Addison, their new acquisition, will come in. They have a very impressive offense. Alexander Mattison is no slouch in the backfield. He will be able to do his thing for that Vikings team in the run game with Dalvin Cook gone. As you said earlier in this episode, Dalvin Cook may have been regressing already as it is, and maybe he was actually holding back Madison and being productive. It's just I could see this being a game that at halftime is close and you might be sweating it a little bit, but then the halftime adjustments come, then things happen when it comes to the Vikings offense, especially, and they open things up. JJ explodes, and ultimately it becomes kind of a 10-point win at home. Nothing surprised there. I don't see a world where I can trust Baker Mayfield at this point in time to cover a spread that's under a touchdown, especially early on in the season on the road at the Vikings. That just doesn't seem like a world I want to live in.
All right, so your first pick of the week is the Vikings -5.5 against the Bucks. The second game you've picked out here is a NFC North rivalry matchup. Aaron Rodgers' old team, the Green Bay Packers, kick off the Jordan Love era in a building that Aaron Rodgers used to thrive at Chicago and Justin Fields and those Bears. Currently, the Bears are favored in an NFL football game. That's wild. By 1.5 points against the Jordan Love Packers. Maybe some interesting injury news came out on Friday. Christian Watson is not going to play. Luka has factored all that into his decision. Luka, how do you see this first post Aaron Rodgers Bears Packers matchup going?
Look, Justin Fields already proved me wrong a little bit last year, although he still didn't win enough games. I still won my lock of the season. That was Bears under 3.5 wins. I believe it was. I think it was whatever it was. They were under my win total. How you doing? But overall, I like Justin Fields. I love the addition of DJ Moore. I think the Bears did some things for the offensive side of the ball that should be able to make them more competitive, should be able to make them kind of be even more entertaining than they already were late in the season last year, where Justin Fields was just basically running free. Running free is the key part of that. I didn't ever see anything that I'm like, oh, this is why in the passing game they're going to be able to elevate stuff. DJ Moore did something in the preseason that everyone's like, oh, Justin Fields, he just hit his 65-yard touchdown. It was just a quick screen out to DJ Moore, who then got through a couple blocks and around it and then just housed it. And that is DJ Moore at his finest. So I just don't see necessarily the Bears being able to then come in and play the Packers. Well, not come in, technically be at home, but play the Packers, who have a very impressive defense. I think this is a game that screams under. That is not what my mortal lock is here. Wink, wink. But this is a game that screams under to me. It's a divisional game with, in my opinion, the better team being on the road. Somehow they found themselves being the dog. Yes, Christian Watson is out, but I think the kind of keys of the Lambeau being handed to Jordan Love in that offense, and the thing that offense should be able to exploit against a bad Bears defense is the running game. Ultimately, to me, this is a game where you just take the Packers money line at the Bears. Look, I know it's currently 1.5. You can get that 1.5. Why flirt around with that when you can get them now at plus money on the money line? I expect the Packers to win this game. Right now, at this point in time, I have the lines up here. I believe for the Packers, if you want to take them at 1.5, which I don't mind at all, it's -118 on FanDuel. It is -110 on DraftKings if you want that 1.5. But why bother? I really expect the Packers to go into Chicago and start off strong. The Packers traditionally week one have done well when it comes to new quarterbacks. I mean, there's only been 2 in the past 20 something years, but both of those regimes have started out really well, and the Packers just own the Bears. And the Bears haven't done enough to kind of move the ticker and show to me that they can do anything. So Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon on the ground, Jordan Love should still be able to manage this game. If Romeo Doubs doesn't play, I might be sweating this one a little bit, but overall, I still expect the ground game to be the X factor. The Bears defensively are still a disaster in my mind. And yeah, Jordan Love should be able to take care of business on the road. So I like the Packers on the road, money line in Chicago.
Good point on the money line, too, because you're talking about 1.5 points. You might as well just feed that into the juice. You think Green Bay is going to win, take them to win. If it was 3 or 4 points, obviously you would take the points because then you're kind of covered on both sides. But what are the realistic range of outcomes where the Packers lose the game but somehow stay within 1.5 points? They'd really have to only lose by 1 point. All right, Luka, your third and final Luka's Locks matchup of the week is under the lights of Sunday Night Football. We all are going to hear that song that gets us all so fired up as we have just spent an entire day watching NFL action. And most of the country is getting ready to watch Sunday Night Football. Luka and I are watching it while also recording a podcast. But hey, that's a choice we make. The Dallas Cowboys, a very interesting team. They brought in Stephon Gilmore. They brought in Brandon Cooks. And they are taking on the New York Giants. I have this in my notes as at Dallas, but I think that's at New
It's in
York,
New
right?
York. Yeah,
It's in
you
New
wrote
York.
it down
Okay,
wrong.
that's what I was thinking. So I typed that wrong. That's on me. They are in New York, and on the road, two playoff teams. The Cowboys are 3.5-point road favorites. Luka, how do you see this game going between the retooled New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys, who've had a pretty nice offseason?
So I will say, if you've listened to our podcast and you listen to our Rivals Watch, you should understand how I feel about both of these teams, as the Bills will be playing them eventually this season. And that's where I'll just leave it off. I don't have to go crazy into those details, but I'm not exactly Dallas's biggest fan, and I definitely think that the Giants are kind of one of those dark horses for me this year. I like a lot of the things they have done in the offseason. Now, Darren Waller is questionable to play, and that definitely throws up a little bit of a mini red flag. I think Darren Waller is an X factor. I actually am just hoping he will play. I don't know if there's any reason to hope, or that if anything's come out that he is, I'm excited. But overall, that's that. The thing on top of this is divisional games. When the dog is at home in week 1, they are 72% to covering the spread. 72%. Do not overthink this, people. You somehow have a Giants team that is a little bit on an upswing at home to their Cowboys, who, by the way, are 11-1 against the Giants in their past 12 games. I understand that stat, but they have the Giants at home as a dog with the hook. And I just don't overthink it. Just please do not overthink it. And I don't overthink it to the point where that's my 2U play for the week. That is the play. Giants plus 3.5 at home against the Cowboys. I really question a lot of things that the Cowboys have done. I question that offense. I think they've actually neutered it in the offseason somehow, even by adding Brandon Cooks. I think a lot of the things they did with play calling and what they want to do objectively is going to ultimately neuter the big play opportunities that they have, just because they don't want to do it for whatever reason. They let that guy go, and he's now in LA. And the Giants are on the uptick, where they have a lot of opportunity. They have a great offense with a great offensive mind, of course. Reigning coach of the year, Brian Dable. We all know and love him so much. It's like, just don't overthink it. Take the Giants with the points at home in a primetime game. I can see a world where they're going to win, but if you're going to give me the hook 3.5 at home against a divisional opponent, I will absolutely take that. Give me Giants plus 3.5 against the Cowboys. Thank you very much. 2U play.
So to wrap it up, we have the the Vikings minus 5.5 over the Bucks. Luka is fine laying those points. Take the Vikings. We have the Packers money line. Go ahead and absorb those 1.5 points. Luka thinks the Packers win this game outright. And then his 2U play of the week, Giants getting 3.5 points at home against the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. For Luka, that is this edition of Luka's Locks of the Week. All right, Luka, quick question for you, because you may have saw me make a face during that segment. And you were talking about how when division teams are at home and they're underdogs on week 1. And my head was like, this is awkward because we're on the road against a division team. And I was looking at the Bear, seeing if the Bear had a thought on this.
I was waiting for someone to talk about it in the comments.
But then you said the thing that made me think, okay, the hook. We have a 2.5 point. That's not the hook.
Right.
It's the 3.5 point.
That's
Luka,
right.
can you explain for folks out there what the hook means and why it's such a pivotal number in gambling?
I mean, if you think about it right there and then and there, obviously 3 points. That's a field goal, last second field goal. Josh talked about a field goal walk off. The hook is essentially going from that 2.5 to 3.5. If you have the ability to get the 3.5 point, you have the hook in your hand. If you don't think that if you think it's a field goal game, if you think it's an under game, and you just aren't sure on a side, you generally want the individual team that has the hook in hand. And that hook is that 2.5 to 3.5. That 3.5 is the hook. You have it in your hand. You can lose by a walk-off field goal. That's fine. You still won your bet. You still got it. If the Giants are up 2 and the Cowboys somehow devise a drive to walk down and walk off with a game-winning field goal, I'm still a happy guy in my betting world, because guess what? I still won my bet. And that's why you took that. If they're up 1, still got it. It's like, whoop, whoop, we're good. 3.5 is a big, big number. It's why I even 7.5. If I ever see a line at 7.5, I'll sometimes look at that and buy that point to bring it down to 6.5. 7.5 is a too stressful of a number. 6.5 is a nice, sweet number. It's like, just got to win by 7. Just got to win by a touchdown. I see Justin real quick. We'll wrap this up, this betting part here. Justin, I just want to let you know, you are like public money. You are the you are the individual that sportsbooks love. I will say that. He is somehow taking Dallas -3.5. I think he took Eagles -4, which, by the way, I don't hate Eagles -4. It's just that one's the sharp money is heavy on the Patriots. Just understand that one real quick, which is not a good thing if you have Eagles -4. And then Jags -4.5 is an ugly, ugly, ugly line. I do think they can cover it, but that's just not one when you're on the road that you want to have and you're kind of on your ticket. Because, I mean, it's a divisional game. You're on the road. It's tough. Like 4.5 is an ugly number to try to cover.
I think the Colts could be pretty bad this year. A
Could.
lot of, but I'm with you. For whatever reason, those two teams play each other tough. When Jacksonville's awful and the Colts are really good, Jacksonville always plays them tough. I don't remember the last time Jacksonville won in Indy. I think that's probably going to be the kind of game I'm rooting for Indy, because I have family members who like Indy, but they're breaking in a new quarterback. They don't have their best offensive player, kind of a transition year for them. Maybe they lose enough games to get Marvin Harrison's son back on the Colts. That'd be kind of cool. But I could absolutely see that game coming down to the wire and being a little too close for comfort for Jacksonville. All right, Luka, before we get out of here, though, I do have to get your thought on this, because college football was electric last week, and it was must-see TV. And I didn't even tell you we're going to talk about this, but you are Mr. College Football right now. What game do you have your eye on this weekend? Because we got Alabama, Texas. We obviously have Deion Sanders, Colorado Buffaloes taking on Nebraska, which I got to tell you, after 1 week, I am already like on the Colorado bandwagon. I'm not going to say I'm a Colorado fan, but everything about that story works for me. I am in, and I am rooting for the Buffaloes. I'm not going to buy any Colorado Buffaloes gear, but as a guy that has never had a college rooting interest, this story works for me, and I'm in. So what do you have your eye on tomorrow?
I mean, Colorado, Nebraska, it's obviously got everyone's eye. There is more money on the Colorado-Nebraska game for tomorrow than there is this is early in the week. I think it was said on Wednesday, than the entire week one slate with one of the sports books that was interviewed. That's an absurd amount of money. Like, if you pay attention to those things, the line moved in such a crazy way that it was nuts. Like, for instance, my dad had texted me. He goes, "Oh, I love Colorado over 5.5 wins on the season." And when he had texted me it was still plus 128. By the time I sat down and looked at it a few hours later, it was already minus money. And I was just like, this is absurd, the amount of money coming on Colorado. Clearly, they have all of everyone's attention. If you watch football, I mean, it's marketing genius. You hire primetime. You have primetime in the house, and you go on the road to TCU, which of course everyone understood was in the national championship, although they were a very different team. So the writing was kind of on the wall on that one. And they actually put up a great performance and won that game. It's the media darling success. And now it's primetime against Matt Rule in Nebraska. That's an interesting one. I'm not going to be paying attention to that one too much, other than the fact that literally everyone else is watching it. It is a noon game, noon slate. It's one you can put on in the back and stuff. I love Bama, Texas. It's the primetime game and everything like that. Bama, to me, for whatever reason, it seems like individuals really think Texas is back, and Sarkisian's got that thing going and moving. Quinn Ewers, I can never say the name right. Quinn Ewers, whatever his name is. All that kind of stuff. Texas is actually one of these kind of fugazis where everyone believes that they're actually like really good and a historic, but they're actually not. If you look at their record outside of Mac Brown, I'm pretty sure they're at 500 or maybe even below 500. It's like, no, they're just kind of like a national brand because of who they are and where they're located more than anything else.
Sounds like another Texas team that we all know and love in football.
Yeah, we just talked about one right now.
Yeah.
Take the opposite team. Overall though, Bama -7 home to Texas. Oh yeah. And Bama is so in tune with this game that they were upset that Texas put their band in the very top corner, which is a traditional thing in Texas's defense. They always put the opposition's band up in the very top corner of their stadium. And Bama actually normally gives you like a lower bowl corner real estate. And that's an SEC rule that you have to do that. Well, Texas isn't in the SEC yet. They will be next year, or actually maybe in 2 years. I can't remember when it was, but they don't have to do that right now. So they're putting them in the very top corner of their stadium. They remember those things. Those things are bulletin board material. And then you have Nick Saban and a high caliber team. Alabama is going to dog walk. Yeah. And when I say dog walk, they are going to obliterate Texas. I don't understand anyone that's on the hype train for Texas walking in to Bama and somehow winning. I don't expect them to cover 7. I don't expect them to win. Bama is going to roll literally them over. So they're one. And then Notre Dame. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on Notre Dame, man. They are very, very, very impressive to me. Notre Dame, and it's like I everything about them. They're just top to bottom. Quarterback play comes in. They look like they finally have a quarterback that can throw the ball decisively and well. They have a defense that can back it up. They have a good running game. It's like I don't know, a 4 or 5 deep in the wheelhouse there. And then finally, real quick, for betting purposes, just smash Oregon anytime you can right now. They are just obliterating teams, and it's entertaining. It seems like the old Oregon days are back. So those are kind of the games I'm watching overall. It's exciting that college football is back, and college football to me is right now in a place that's a little bit more unpredictable than it's ever been. And it's because recruiting, like Dabo Sweeney down in Clemson learned the hard way. You kind of got to live in the transfer portal now, and you got to live in the new age of college football, because if you still live in recruitment and just developing and things like that, you're going to get left in the dust and you're no longer worth anything. And that's just the reality of it, which also makes it a little bit more unpredictable. So it's fun to watch.
Such a different dynamic because you have to continue to recruit these people. It's not like once you get them in house, you can totally put on a new face and become a different person, because they can up and leave. There's not the restrictions that used to be in place. Just for the record, Notre Dame is on the road against NC State, and Oregon is on the road against Texas Tech. Well, Luka, next time we are on the air with a show will be our Bills Chat podcast. It drops every Monday morning. Normally, it is a post-game slot. We really enjoy that. We come on and talk about the Bills game, but this week it's going to be pregame. And, we talked a lot about stuff tonight, but it's going to be game day. We are going to be wall to wall Bills Jets, big picture, small picture. Let's dive into the matchups. Anything that's changed our opinion since tonight, we would love it for you to check that out Monday morning, anywhere your podcast can be found. And if you're liking the faces you see on your screen, you can always find it on YouTube in its entirety. And then Luka and I will be back next Friday night for Bills Chat Live, previewing the Bills Week 2 matchup coming up, the home opener against the Las Vegas Raiders. Well, Luka, any final thoughts before we get out of here for this Week 1?
I am so excited that football's back.
No, I'm just so hyped up. We're back. We're back. We're gonna have commercial-free football on Sunday. We had the Chiefs lose on Thursday. Like, what else can you ask for? You got college football Saturday to enjoy your time tomorrow. Oh, it's good to be back in the thick of things. We are back in it. We're in it until the new year. Oh, it's just so good to be back.
Speaking of being back and speaking of thick, where is he going with this? My wife, and I'm saying my wife now, so it's really weird. My wife is big on, like, you can't have chili until the weather gets cold. And I have worn her down now that you can have chili once football starts.
Nice.
Sunday, I am making my first pot of chili of the season, and I am already thinking about how delicious it's going to be. I hope all of you out there watching have a fantastic week number 1. Enjoy the NFL. We have made it, folks. And win or lose, Luka and I will be right back in these chairs next week to talk about everything we saw and everything we think is going to happen. We are going to ride this ride with you of the 2023 Buffalo Bills. It all kicks off Monday night, but we have a full slate of NFL and college games to get us through this busy weekend, and we hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. For Luka, I am Josh McCarty, and we will see you next week on Bills Chat Live.